say this. Drew Brees said after the game, I played terribly, yet that was enough to defeat the greatest player in the history of the National Football League.
Well, Tom didn't play well. And you could look at the actual game and you could tell that there was some struggles there, miscommunication there. His first game, he didn't really have a true training camp. There was no major OTAs or off season. And I think as the season wears on, you'll see that Tom will get better. I'm not worried about him.
I just feel like when you watch, first off, the Saints are going to win. They're at home. First, all the lines they had after the game about there being no sounds, and they're like, well, we're playing Tampa Bay in the stadium. It was kind of cold. It's very cold-blooded. But when you look at Tom Brady, I mean, look, he's making the bet against the youthful talent that he has, Key. When you think about the weapons that he still has so many weapons. He seemed out of sync. Obviously, their penalties excess to over 100-plus yards. But in time, I'm going to bet on Tom Brady figuring this out instead of saying that he's going to be on the wrong side of 40.
No,
and that he's losing it. Everybody, I don't want people just to blow things out of proportion. Like, what's wrong with Tom? He doesn't have it anymore.
They may not win the division. But they're certainly going to be around. They may not even make it to the playoffs, but they're going to be around. I'm not worried about him. Again, Mike Evans got to get on the same page with him. Got to continue to run through the route. He's got to do a better job from the other side of the hash throwing an out route. Anticipation, letting it go earlier. And it's just a matter of getting things taken care of, going back to the film, reassessing, self-check, evaluating what went wrong, and correcting it.
They got Carolina Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern in their home opener. 2 games tonight to bring week 1 to a close. Giants, Steelers, and then the Titans and the Broncos, both on ESPN. And on the latter, we'll have Steve Levy, Brian Greasy, and Louis Riddick, our new Monday Night Football team. The Monday Night Football preview is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. It's a pleasure to welcome Lou Riddick in on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Lou, tonight you're going to get to see a couple quarterbacks that have plenty to prove to their fan bases in Ryan Tannehill and Drew Lock. But I want to start with, obviously, the guys we just talked about, the guys that have nothing left to prove, Brady and Breeze, and your thoughts on what you saw from both of them yesterday.
Yeah, I think with Tom, as everybody's, talked about already, he's trying to figure out right now, and Bruce Arians talked about this in their post-game comments. Tom's trying to figure out what exactly do we do best in real game time situations. What do our guys do best? And I think you're learning. It's kind of like on-the-job training for the first time in his career, and you could see both in Bruce's actions on the sideline and then in his post-game comments on Tom's actions on the field and how he sounded in his post-game comments that this is still going to be a learning process. And see, whereas, in most cases you would say, well, they've got time, it's the first game, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting because when I talk to people, who are actually, whose lives are, who kind of like live and die with every win and loss, because this year they're really cognizant of trying to get quick starts because they don't know how the season's going to go once we get in October and November and December. They don't know how guys are going to react to staying disciplined as far as COVID and all, and they don't know how their teams are going to look. So people are putting a lot of emphasis on fast starts. And so what does that do? That puts guys like Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints at an advantage because they have that familiarity. Him and Sean Payton have been together for so long. And although Drew didn't play that great either, what you still saw, though, was in crucial situations, crucial situational football situations, they knew what they wanted to do. They knew who they wanted to go to. They knew they wanted to get the ball to Alvin Kamara as much as possible on some of the plays that he really likes. They even knew, like, down on the goal line on the touchdown pass to Emmanuel Sanders, they knew with that quick in-and-out motion, that's one of their go-to plays. If it's not Emmanuel Sanders, that has been Michael Thomas who's run that route. They've run that route for 10, 15 years. So, I mean, they know what they want to get to, so they can overcome sloppy execution. So it's interesting in those two situations with Drew, people would look at that game and go, well, Drew looks like maybe, he doesn't have the same kind of horsepower in his arm. Maybe, this is the eventual downturn for him. They always have stuff that they know they can go to, and that's because of that familiarity with Tom. Whereas I'm not concerned, as Keyshawn has said, I'm a little concerned only because the greater importance that the early part of the season is going to have this year. And I know that because that's what people have been telling me. We want to come out of the gates fast. We don't want to get behind heading into October.
When you talk about concern, that performance yesterday by Lamar Jackson, there's no concern there for Baltimore. They took them to the woodshed. Cleveland looked like they basically look like the same ball club from a year ago. Lewis, What did you see in Lamar?
Keyshawn, I see a guy who, look, man, he knows what he needs to improve upon in order to take his game to an even higher level, which really at this point is ridiculous considering what he's already done. And what that was, as far as taking his game to the next level, was his ability to still throw the football, not just between the numbers, but outside the numbers, and throw it with great accuracy when people kind of keep him contained inside the pocket and don't allow him to get out on the edges. And he showed that. And look, he's 20 over 25. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That kind of efficiency coming right out of the gate shows you that this offseason he worked on the things that he still felt that he needed to work on to take his game to a higher level. And you're right, you always have to consider the opponent and keep it in context. And the Browns are still trying to learn yet another new coaching staff. And, and they're fighting all kinds of perception and all kinds of self-doubt that they inherently are going to have up there because they haven't won anything in forever. But when you just keep it to Baltimore and their level of execution, what Lamar's doing, look, man, I'm just happy that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we get to see him and Pat Mahomes together on Monday Night Football, which is just going to be, that's just going to be insane, that kind of matchup. But Lamar, he picked up right where he's left off, and he's going to be right there for the MVP again, guarantee it.
Lou, let's talk about the Monday Night Football matchups. We have the Giants versus the Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers they rush the passer better than any other team in the NFL. Do the Giants have enough to keep Daniel Jones protected? What are some of the keys to that game?
I think protection for sure on Daniel's part, protection of himself and protection of the football. We know that his ball security in the pocket is a problem. Pittsburgh has a number of ways to disrupt the passer. They have two of the best on the edge within the scheme of their context. With Watt and Bud Dupree, they have one of the best ball hawks in the back end as far as creating turnovers in Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then Big Ben's coming back. So he's going to put up some points. He's got some fantastic weapons on the perimeter. So Pittsburgh's going to get theirs. So the Giants are going to have to make sure that they maximize every one of their possessions. They're going to have to make sure they get Saquon going early and often and don't fall behind. And we'll see what the new defense looks like. We'll see if they've made any improvements on that side of the ball in order to keep Pittsburgh in check. Because again, this is another one of those situations where veteran coaching staff, veteran quarterback, a known way of doing things in Pittsburgh versus Joe Judge, second-year quarterback, learning another new system with a new offensive coordinator, and an organization that's been in a state of flux for a while now with the New York Giants. So it's obviously a big advantage to Pittsburgh.
Louis Riddick, ESPN's Monday Night Football analyst, joining us here on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Lou, you're calling the game tonight. Titans up in Denver in Mile High. Denver without Von Miller, Tannehill, from a defensive standpoint. What are we expecting to see out of the offense from Denver with the young quarterback, Drew Lock?
Yeah, I think, in talking to Drew, and opportunities that we've had to talk to him, I think what you should see is a guy who is going to I think you're going to see the full, breadth of his arsenal on display, meaning this. You're going to see quick passes. You're going to see five-step rhythm passes. You'll see lots of play action change the launch point, whether it be play action straight drop back, play action roll out, because he's a fantastic athlete. I think, as long as Cortland Sutton plays, you're going to see one of the new up-and-coming, big-time, bigger wide receivers that we have in the NFL. Their first-round pick, Jerry Jeudy, is dynamic. Their former first-round pick last year, Noah Fant, at tight end, one of the best catch-and-run tight ends in the NFL. So I think you'll see them try to spread the ball out to their playmakers on the perimeter and get it in their hands quickly because they're deficient, Keyshawn, up front. They're deficient on long offensive line.